This is Shuttle Launch Control, T-minus 2 hours, 29 minutes and counting. And the astronaut crew on their way out, shaking hands as they come. Six-man crew, Owen Garriott just coming out. Ulf Murbold on his way. Ulf, the first European to fly aboard the shuttle, followed by Byron Lichtenberg, the other of a new breed of astronauts, the payload specialist. Gene String from the security office leading the group out. Commander John Young, pilot Brewster Shaw, followed by payload specialist and by the mission specialist, and getting into the Astrovan for their trip out to the pad.
The launch of Spacelab marks a high point in international cooperation in space ventures. The Spacelab was designed, developed, and manufactured under the direction of the European Space Agency, involving 10 member countries: Germany, Belgium, Denmark, Spain, France, the United Kingdom, Italy, the Netherlands, Switzerland, and as an observer state, Austria. T-minus 1 minute and counting. The hydrogen igniters under the orbiter's engines have now been armed. These devices are used to ensure that any hydrogen flowing through the engines prior to ignition does not accumulate. T-minus 45 seconds. 14 seconds away from switching command to the onboard computers. The Spacelab countdown is now complete. Coming up on the 30-second point, and we go for auto sequence start. The SRB hydraulic power units have started. These move the solid motor nozzles to steer the vehicle. T-minus 20 seconds. 18, 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 10. We have go for main engine start. 8, 7, 6. We have main engine start. 3, 2, 1. Solid motor ignition and liftoff. Liftoff of Columbia and the first flight of the European Space Agency Spacelab. The shuttle has cleared the tower.
Roger, roll. Vehicle rolling from tail south around to 35-degree azimuth northeast. Roger. Altitude 1.1. All APUs running at 106% of RPM. Distance 1 mile, 2.7 nautical miles altitude. Five miles altitude. Roger. Columbia, Houston, your go and throttle up. Throttling up from 85% back to the 488,000 pounds of thrust that each of Columbia's new engines has. We're 13 miles altitude, 10 miles downrange. Each of the three fuel cells producing 7.8, 7.2 and 7.2 kilowatts, respectively. 20 miles altitude, 18 miles downrange. Velocity 4,163 feet per second.
PC 1150.
Roger on the PC. 25 miles altitude, 26 miles downrange. Roger, SRB set. SRB has separated. SRB engines have pulled away from the spacecraft at this time.
looking at payload bay camera Delta, seeing the insignia for the 10-member European Space Agency on the thermal shielding of the Space Lab module. Mission Specialist Owen Garriott just unlocked the handle crank on the airlock, was working with the pressure equalization valves. He is now unwinding the release mechanism.
And Columbia Houston, in about a minute and a half, we'll be handing over to Madrid for some tracking, and so we'll have you on G-State N.
Crew now has the hatch open. There it goes up and out of the way.
We'll configure TDRUS as soon as we go LOS.
Okay.
Now visible in the lower portion of the hatch is, or of the tunnel way, is the crew beginning to open the hatch between the tunnel adapter and the Space Lab transfer tunnel. Payload crew now in the process of transferring through the Space Lab transfer tunnel.
In Columbia Houston, we can see you coming down the tunnel. You got about 11 and a half more minutes of TV coverage. Welcome to Space Lab.
Okay. We're just moving into Space Lab right now.
Left of the field of view, Mission Specialist Owen Garriott, and to the right, Payload Specialist Byron Lichtenberg, followed by a European Space Agency Payload Specialist Ulf Merbold, now in the Space Lab module for the first time.
Get into the Space Lab on the monitor.
Okay, we
Block 9 is complete, and we're ready to do Block 10.
Okay, go right ahead.
Space Lab, this is Marshall Ops on air to ground 1. How copy? CC. Marshall Ops and Bill, we hear you loud and clear in Space Lab. Well, wonderful, Owen. What a venture this is. Fantastic. I'll tell you, there's a bunch of guys having a pretty good time up here. We're about through a Space Lab activation now. Oh, we're having a ball down here, Owen. Our goosebumps have goosebumps. Not as big as ours. I'm sure of that. We've got Doug Watt standing by. We would like to get a status on 20 from Owen when he can talk. Okay, Owen completed the O20 calibration successfully, and the airlock has been depressed, but we haven't extended it yet. Okay, copy, and we thank you.
Garriott now in the process of donning the harness, which is already attached to the floors via bungee cords. And in the science monitoring area here at the Johnson Space Center, Principal Investigator Doug Watt continuing to monitor that downlink television of the setup of his experiment.
Receiving still the live downlink from CPAC. We're looking now at a star field.
And Space Lab Marshal, Bob, you made our day down here. If you can copy, we're hearing nothing but superlatives from the CPAC team.
Nothing but superlatives, huh?
That's correct. Beautiful video.
That means we were lucky.
Just good.
Gosh. Golly. That was a systems checkout.
And Mission Specialist Owen Garriott now in between the CPAC operations panel, the panel with the grayish panel with the switches on it, and the data display unit, moving toward the data display unit from which he does part of his control of the CPAC experiment. It's at the data display unit that he monitors much of his data on the progress of the experiment. Payload Specialist Lichtenberg working at the Material Science double rack.
Owen, this is CPAC. We have indication of a first MPD firing.
Got the same indication on our display here, right.
And number 2.
Byron just got it, and it's a rather bluish-colored flash of very short duration, so there was another one, and it does not have any strong directional characteristics. It's more or less just a uniform hemispherical glow, bluish color, coming from the general area of the MPD arc.
How big would you say the sphere was? What diameter?
The brightest part, which is sort of saturated in the eyeball, I would guess to be about 1 meter in size, and then the intensity diminishes over another 4 or 5 meters away from that. So it's a real bright central flash, then just exponentially decaying over the next 5 or 10 meters.
What would you say the exponential decay length was?
How about 1 meter for the decay rate? So I can't see any decay in the first meter or so. It's just too much of a single bright flash. But beyond that, then I would, something between 1 and 2 meters is the scale distance.
And CPAC for Space Lab, thank you very much. It went great. The charging looks very interesting. The MTV photos showing the glow is going to keep us busy for some time.
Space Lab, this is Marshal Ops. I see you guys are examining your Venus pressure waveforms. We're kind of wondering what you're seeing on the screen. It looks great down here. We're getting still our TV camera a broad view of all the goings-on. Looks like Byron must be doing a Valsalva. I see his central venous pressure rising and rising and rising. Now it's falling back down. The physiology people say, super.
Well, Al, I think we've covered just about 1/3 of the science that we expected to do, but it's been concentrated heavily in the area of life sciences to begin with. We've had relatively little opportunity to get started on the space physics and nothing on solar astronomy and that sort of thing. So in terms of life sciences, I'd say we're well beyond the 1/3 way, and for the most part, everything has gone quite well. Some of the data, like the drop and shock we were just talking about, those kinds of data look extremely good. So I'd say we're pretty close to schedule, even though we haven't got into as many of the physical sciences as we would like. We're not up to 1/3 there. No, I think things are about as you expect. The first day was very hard. That's because the medics all want to get their data on the first day. Other than that, I don't think we've had a chance to look at it and see how the rest of the mission goes. Certain days of the mission are not crowded, and certain are crowded. They don't, but they average out. Well, this is Byron Lichtenberg, and I'd like to answer that, Mort. Yes, I really think it is. Just an amazing vehicle up here sitting inside the orbiter Columbia, and I think Space Lab has lived up to all its expectations so far. We've been able to conduct life sciences, material sciences, fluid physics, some plasma physics experiments, and there are times when some of these experiments can be going on simultaneously with different crew members. It's very versatile, very easy to work in here, and I think going to be very successful. Over. Oh, I think I'm not more tired than anybody else.
Bob Parker and I, we are at the end of our shift. We have worked now for 12 hours. But to come back to the problems, there are minor problems, and the real complication is to stick to the timeline. Whenever there is a thing popping up which is not really scheduled, then you can run into trouble with scheduled activities, and that is, as far as my feelings go, the most difficult thing.
The AEPI team is following the actions of the Space Lab payload crew right now.
And we got good video, Bob. Thank you.
Okay, say again, Chuck.
And we're seeing the display now. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
And Bob, we're watching it down here, and looks good so far.
Now receiving data from the AEPI. And the team is monitoring on their own video screens the information as it comes in.
Open up the, Owen, please open up the iris a little bit or increase the sensitivity somewhat.
Okay, I'm trying to do that.
Good setting, Owen. Owen, we acknowledge your movement of the MTV.
Looking at the back, it's a very bright flash, and following the MPD, there's sometimes a few little sparks or particles being emitted glowing, also coming out of the nozzle. The camera is moving on its own. I don't know who took it over.
Space Lab CPAC. Owen, it appears to be doing what it would be doing if it were under automatic control, so we're not sure why it's doing that.
You're correct. It was in auto control. I was using the iris in manual and not the system in manual, so I got it back in manual control.
Owen, we will not get an MPD shutdown because we had the EVA shut down previously. So we would like an all shutdown, please. Item 14,
okay.
All.
And while the crew is working with the life sciences activities with the rotating dome, the Far Ultraviolet Space Telescope is now taking photography of the Andromeda Galaxy. This activity being operated automatically by the Space Lab computer. Additionally, we're receiving downlink television now from the Space Experiments with Particle Accelerators camera. This television recorded earlier on board the Space Lab.
It's beautiful. Now, Michael, I guess we're coming over the west coast of the U.S., and let's say hello to all the people down in Oregon.
That sounds great, Byron. Thanks for the report. We're getting some real-time video downlink. We're looking at the exterior Space Lab from the forward payload bay camera, and there's a gorgeous limb of the daylit Earth off behind the Space Lab module.
Roger that. There's a lot of good snow down in the mountains in Oregon. Ski season is fast approaching.
Hey, firm. We'll have to get together on that a little bit after the mission.
Absolutely right.
Orbiter now passing off the coast of Canada into the Atlantic Ocean, continuing to receive live downlink television.
Space Lab Marshal Ops for Byron. Yeah, we're getting some really spectacular video downlink from the payload bay cameras. You guys are just passed over Hudson Bay, we believe, and I guess we're seeing a lot of cloud patterns over Hudson Bay. Just before that, we're seeing large bodies of water.
Roger, we copy the same thing. I've got it on some of my home movie 16 millimeter film also.
And Space Lab, we can see Owen extending the sow.
Actually, what we're seeing is the outer hatch come cranking open, not the SAL table extended yet.
Now receiving downlink television of the exterior of the Space Lab module. Meanwhile, inside, Owen Garriott in the process of...
we can see experiment 22 come cranking out of Space Lab. Really good real-time shot.
Get any TV of the module?
standing by for a retraction of experiment 22, the wide field camera, which has been photographing ultraviolet emissions from various astronomical sources during this night pass of the orbiter. Must be retracted into the SAL and the cover closed to protect the camera during the daylight portion of the orbit. And here in the payload operations control center, the experiment 22 investigator team consulting following another operation of their experiment. Byron Lichtenberg now setting up one of the television cameras in the space lab.
Did you copy all of the CPAC information in the last transmission?
So the one that's looking in the fluid physics module, you can see the fluid in there with the tracers reflecting, and it's not a great one. Camera 2.
Okay, we'll try to get on camera 2.
I did what y'all wanted. I started spinning it, and I went from 0 to, or Oscar to Papa, and then Papa to Bravo, and by the time I got to Bravo, the fluid had spread out all over the disk. I am now Bravo to November. I'm at November, and I'll go ahead and rotate it for you a little bit. You can see how asymmetric it is.
Roger, and we're watching it now on TV.
Okay. About some, it's pretty tough to get the light set up for the TV.
We understand. PI here. 39 PI space lab. I'm watching the TV. B29 PI here. Am I enabled?
Either the settings or something, but
okay.
Anywhere close to a 40 millimeter cylinder. Also, okay. This is still, we've still got two 40 millimeter discs and the 100 centistokes with tracer fluid in here. My reservoir and front plate positions are almost equal now, so that I shouldn't have any fluid left in there. My feeling is that there were some fairly large air bubbles in that reservoir when it was launched, because either that or it moved and expanded, because I didn't suck any fluid in except I could see what I was doing when I did Mike Haynes' run, so that I was pretty sure that I didn't suck any air in it, but there's quite a bit in there, obviously.
And we see a beautiful picture of we're about to call Cologne.
Yeah, we are not quite there. Right now we are crossing the Atlantic Ocean. We have just passed the mouth of the Amazon River, but as everybody knows, we are moving really fast and it doesn't take much time to make it all the way to Europe.
Cologne, Marshal Operations, please give Columbia a call.
Hello, Space Lab. Hello, Space Lab. Here's Columbia Post calling. Ulf Merbold, are you there? Here's Ulf Merbold on board of Columbia. Ulf, I am together with Minister Dr. Riesenhuber and the United States Ambassador Mr. Burns. Dr. Riesenhuber will speak to you. Okay? Okay, dann sprechen wir jetzt in Deutsch weiter. Awesome.
Herr Merbold, guten Morgen. Geht's Ihnen gut? Haben Sie die Schwerlosigkeit gut überstanden?
Ja, wir sind inzwischen alle vollständig angepasst und fühlen uns pudelwohl. Es gibt also niemanden an Bord, der irgendwelche Probleme hat.
Und der Mannschaftsgeist und der Spaß an der Arbeit ist durchaus noch da, trotz eines sehr großen Arbeitsdrucks, den Sie zu bewältigen haben.
Ja, ganz im Gegenteil, das hat in den letzten Tagen eigentlich noch zugenommen, denn wir haben natürlich jetzt auch Erfolg und haben also doch einige sehr gute Experimente machen können und das beflügelt natürlich die Lust an der Arbeit. Herr Minister, ich möchte Ihnen noch schnell unseren Commander hier vorstellen im Fernsehen hier. This is John Young, the commander of the Columbia, and he was talking to me and that I should convey his best wishes for the success of the flight. That was the German Minister for Technology and Research. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Bedanke mich bei Ihnen.
Vielen Dank, Herr Merbold. Guten Flug und guten Erfolg.
Herzlichen Dank und im Namen auch von John Young, vielen herzlichen Dank.
Best regards to the commander.
Thank you.
Dr. Mirabo,
Thank you. His regards.
I'm so proud to be able to say just a few words to you. We Americans are especially glad and especially proud to have you work with us Americans on this marvelous space lab. We want to congratulate you on the experiments that you've been performing and on the success that you're having. We're very proud of you. We wish you further success in your work and a very happy landing.
Thanks a lot, sir, but let me tell you that it is certainly a privilege for me to be on that very exciting mission, together with distinguished people like John Young and Owen Garriott.
Thank you very much, and good luck to you, and say hello to my American friends and colleagues.
I will do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Greetings from Washington. Chancellor Kohl is with us all the way from Athens, Greece. Along with you astronauts hovering in space with me here in Washington and the whole world listening, this is one heck of a conference call. Seriously, though, this space shuttle mission represents the enormous potential available to mankind. The space lab in which the experiments are being carried out was designed and built by the European Space Agency. The Federal Republic of Germany and other European contributors can be especially proud of this achievement. It is fitting that on this, the German-American tricentennial, a German astronaut is part of the shuttle team. The shuttle is demonstrating that technology can be used to bring people together in a new spirit of enterprise and cooperation, to better their lives, ensure the peace of mankind. I know Chancellor Kohl agrees with me that this shuttle mission, with its German and American crew, represents the highest aspirations of our two peoples. Chancellor Kohl, this is a great day. Perhaps you could give us your thoughts on this marvelous occasion.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. It is a terrific experience for us to be able to talk together this way and to talk to the crew as well. Above all, I would like to send my best wishes to my countrymen. Dear Herr Merbold, I would like to take this opportunity to assure you and your colleagues, your team members, that I and all countrymen in Germany have, with great excitement and pride, been following your flight for days now. We are proud indeed that your participation in this highly successful experiment is at this time demonstrating in such an impressive way the close ties between Europe and the United States, and that it shows once again that we Europeans are in fact able to hold our own in terms of technology of the future. This US-European shuttle mission is indeed a convincing proof of our closeness, of the closeness between Europe and the United States. President Reagan has already pointed out that it is an exceedingly happy circumstance, of which, of course, we are very much aware, that it is possible at this time to have a German scientist, a European astronaut, as a member of the crew at this particular time, at the time of the tricentennial celebrations of German-American relations, remembering the time when the first Germans came to the United States.
I have one question.
Thank you.
If I could, what do you see as the greatest potential for the use of space?
Mr. President, I see it as a place where humanity can live and work and make things better for people on Earth.
I thank Chancellor Cole and thank you, all of our astronauts. God bless you and Godspeed on your journey home.
And we're now receiving downlink television of experiment 102, the dome portion of that experiment recorded earlier on board. Owen Garriott was the subject for this particular operation, and we're viewing Garriott peering into the dome, and then from the other camera looking at a shot of his eyeball.
Space Lab, this is Marshall Operations. We are now receiving our playback data of the split-screen TV-17 setup of the dome run, and the 102 team is absolutely delighted with the image quality. The pupil, the iris of the eye is evidently almost perfectly centered in the split-screen setup, and we're also getting the postural effects at the same time. Also, the 102 people would like to remind you that you are go for using both Byron and Owen as subjects in the FO5 activities whenever you can fit them in today.
Continuing to receive pre-recorded downlink television from Space Lab. This of the rotating dome experiment. The subject here is Byron Lichtenberg, and he is wearing a special contact lens with landmarks on it to enable the researchers to study the nystagmus or eye motion. This eye motion created as the eye attempts to track the rotation of the dome. Also visible in the close-up of the eyeball is the reflection of the spots on the dome, visible, being reflected in the subject's eye. And the material science team here in the Payload Operation Control Center watching preparations for conduct of their experiment on orbit.
Yeah, hey, we're getting an excellent image of that heated silicon rod, and we see both filaments illuminated and a reasonably symmetrical illumination of the silicon rod. Dr. Iyer will be coming on air-to-ground right away to discuss that with you.
Okay, sounds good. We don't think we have a total melt-through yet, so we're standing by. We're taking it slow.
Hello, Byron. This is Meyer speaking. Can you hear me?
Welcome, yes, we read you loud and clear. I have Wolf here also.
Well, I wish you good luck for the melting of the silicon rod. So far, the picture looks very good.
Roger, we confirm, and I don't think we've quite melted through yet.
No, it's not yet melted through. I would suggest to adjust the height of the molten zone to 1.5 times diameter.
Okay, we copy. I'm showing a pod reading now of 4.3.
For me, the melt looks asymmetric in the moment. Could you confirm that?
Roger, we think it's symmetric also, yes. Say asymmetric or symmetric?
No, I think it's asymmetric.
Asymmetric, okay.
Could you please give me a short report if the rod looks clean around the molten zone or if there is a certain contamination on it?
We have the same type of light gray contamination that we've had on the ground, over. Dolph is making an observation that thinks that we only have one filament going, but it's not clear. We have a kind of a strange angle on the mirror.
We're standing by for some live downlink of this caloric experiment. Those temperatures, by the way, flowing into Mirabel's ears begin at body temperature, and then they start lowering the left ear air temperature to 20 degrees Celsius, while or rather 30 degrees Celsius, while the air in the right ear is raised to 44 degrees. Once those temperatures are stabilized, Mirabel is then moved in cycles in the x-axis, 10 cycles at 3 seconds a cycle, and then he reports any sensations of motion following that. There are several more adjustments in temperature that follow, with each adjustment followed by the same number of cycles and time per cycle.
Do you understand this is the end of the activity today after calorics? There's no provocative and no other activity? 201?
And that's negative, Bob. We have one additional short test, which is X motion, where we would like to have the report from Ulf whether he get any tilting sensation. This is only just about 2 minutes, over.
It is expected by the investigators of this experiment that the subject of this experiment will perceive a sensation of body tilt.
And Space Lab for Bob, can you give Ulf the message that there's beautiful snow in the Swiss Alps and we'll try to ski together there?
Okay, but meanwhile, I need to explain, need you to explain what else you want done there.
You guys getting any of the fluid bubble experiment down there?
And we are seeing the bubble.
Okay.
And we've seen a stop on the MHF.
That's it too, 320.
Okay, we copy. Stop, number 320. Yeah, we have that, Byron, and we're looking at it.
Okay. Columbia. Over.
Columbia, this is Houston. Good to see you guys. You look good.
We're delighted to be here, and we certainly appreciate the messages from the various heads of state and ministers of those countries. I think it is important that we cooperate internationally, not only in space, but everywhere else. And we're anxiously awaiting to get back to the Earth so we can see just exactly what scientific and technical accomplishments have been achieved and report them. It's been an exciting 10 days, and we think we've learned a whole lot about how to live, operate, and work in space in this delightful environment. Not only just a little bit, but 24 hours a day for 10 days straight. And we think that we've accomplished about what we set out to do, learned about what humans could do in space in the Columbia and in the Space Lab. And both vehicles have performed in a truly outstanding manner. I can only say that the crew that I'm associated with, I'm so proud of them. I can't believe it, because they have truly performed, each and every one of them, in every way possible, just beautifully. And I think we're going to be very pleased with the results of this mission when we start analyzing all the data.
Thanks, John. We copy that. And Columbia, Houston, we sure do concur with everything you just said, and we're ready to get back on the timeline now.
Okay, we'll see you all later.
Columbia approaching pre-final, 17,000 feet, coming down at 128 feet per second, 10 miles from the runway. Flight Dynamics Officer reports looks very good coming around heading alignment circle. Very large turn around heading alignment circle, 309 degrees.
Okay, one sec, Houston.
Roger, surface winds are calm.
10,000 feet, dropping 170 feet per second, 7 miles from runway. Columbia is on center line and on glide slope. Columbia on its final approach to the runway, 5 miles out. .5,000 feet. Approximately 285 knots. Still in manual flight control mode. Commander John Young controlling the vehicle. Going into the flare. Gear coming down. Gear down and locked. And we have touchdown, unofficial touchdown time for the main gear, 10:07:47:23. Nose gear coming down. And gear contact. Nose down at 10:07:47:41. And STS9 is home from the longest shuttle mission to date.
We have Scott on Columbia.
Roger that, Columbia. Welcome home. Beautiful landing.
Okay, wait one.
And the crew coming down the walkway now. And a good round of applause from mission control flight controllers. And the hanging of the plaque, a privilege granted by the lead flight director to some of the team members he considers to be to have turned in the best performance during the flight. Up on the ladder, Bob Castle from the ENCO position, the people that handle communications. Very precarious position, and placing the plaque alongside that of STS-8 and the other shuttle missions on the left wall.